We're going to start today with the chapter 32 student work, and we're going to go through this fairly quickly. We'll move on to the chapter 32 lecture. That will be a separate video, and hopefully your classmates will watch both of them. And I'm going to turn this light on. Okay, follow along with me with this introduction of chapter 32. Pontius Pilate was the fifth procurator, governmental representative of Rome in Palestine. He held that office from AD 26 to 36. His name Pontius was his family name. The title Pilate meant one armed with a javelin. Little is known of Pilate's early life, except for a few legends, which might or might not be true. He was said to have been to be the illegitimate son of Pyrrhus. In Rome, he allegedly committed murder and was exiled to Asia Minor, where he subdued a rebellious people, thereby regaining the favor of Rome, and was awarded the governorship of Judea. Pilate seemed to enjoy tormenting the Jews. He never seemed to understand them, and as the Jewish historian Josephus pointed out, he offended them by bringing idolatrous Roman standards into the city of Jerusalem. Another time he hung gold shields inscribed with the names of the Roman gods on the temple itself. He also had his soldiers kill some Galileans while they were sacrificing in the temple. Luke 13:1 refers to that very incident. There were present at that season some that told him of the Galileans whose blood Pilate had mingled with their sacrifices. Pilate's actual headquarters was in Caesarea, but he came to Jerusalem every Passover to keep order among the population, which swelled at that holiday. After the Jewish leaders condemned Christ, they brought him to Pilate, who was probably living in Herod's palace near the temple early in the morning. From the beginning of the hearing, he was torn between offending the Jews and again, and condemning an innocent person. He tried every way of which he could think to convince the Jews to release Jesus. He didn't want them to complain to Rome about his behavior. So, putting politics before justice, he finally gave in to their demand to crucify him. According to Josephus, Pilate's political career ended 6 years later when he tried to suppress a small rebellion. It may or may not have been 6 years, by the way. It might have been 3 years. But a small rebellion in Samaria and killed an innocent man. The Samaritans complained and Pilate was recalled to Rome. His name then seems to have disappeared from official Roman governmental history. The Christian historian Eusebius says, however, that soon afterward, wearied with misfortune, he took his own life. One tradition says that he committed suicide in Vienna, whereas another legend says he was banished to a mountain now known as Mount Pilatus on Lake Lucerne in Switzerland. There he allegedly plunged into the lake and to his death from a precipice. This Pilate was the man before whom Jesus stood condemned. As you study this lesson, consider how Jesus must have felt standing before such a notorious man. So I will say that some of those last things about his death are not historical in the sense that we know them from history. They may or may not be true. It is possible that he committed suicide. It is possible that he jumped off a cliff, but we don't know that for sure. Some of that is later writings. So I'm going to read to you John 18. You can follow along up on the screen. We'll just read it here. When Jesus had spoken these words, he went out with his disciples across the brook Kidron, where there was a garden which he and his disciples entered. Now Judas, who betrayed him, also knew the place, for Jesus often met there with his disciples. So Judas, having procured a band of soldiers and some officers from the chief priests and the Pharisees, went there with lanterns and torches and weapons. Then Jesus, knowing all that would happen to him, came forward and said to them, "Whom do you seek?" They answered him, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus said to them, "I am he." Judas, who betrayed him, was standing with them. When Jesus said to them, "I am he," they drew back and fell to the ground. So he asked them again, "Whom do you seek?" And they said, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus answered, I told you that I am he. So if you seek me, let these men go, his disciples. This was to fulfill the word that he had spoken, of those whom you gave me, I have lost not one. Then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant and cut off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. So Jesus said to Peter, put your sword into its sheath. Shall I not drink the cup that the Father has given me? So the band of soldiers and their captain and the officers of the Jews arrested Jesus and bound him. First they led him to Annas, for he was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, who was high priest that year. It was Caiaphas who had advised the Jews that it would be expedient that one man should die for the people. So Simon Peter followed Jesus, and so did another disciple. Since that disciple was known to the high priest, he entered with Jesus into the courtyard of the high priest. But Peter stood outside at the door. So the other disciple, who was known to the high priest, went out, and so that's John, by the way, went out and spoke to the servant girl who kept watch at the door and brought Peter in. The servant girl at the door said to Peter, you also are not one of this man's disciples, are you? Peter said, I am not. Now the servants and the officers had made a charcoal fire because it was cold, and they were standing and warming themselves. Peter also was with them, standing and warming himself. The high priest then questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teaching. Jesus answered him, I have spoken openly to the world. I have always taught in the synagogues and in the temple where all Jews come together. I have said nothing in secret. Why do you ask me? Ask those who have heard me what I said to them, and they know what I said. When he had said these things, one of the officers standing by struck Jesus with his hand, saying, is that how you answer the high priest? Jesus answered him, if what I said was wrong, bear witness about the wrong. But if what I said was right, why do you strike me? Annas then sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. Now Simon Peter was standing and warming himself. So they said to him, you also are not one of his disciples, are you? He denied it and said, I am not. One of the servants of the high priest, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, asked, did I not see you in the garden with him? Peter denied it again, and at once the rooster crowed. Then they led Jesus from the house of Caiaphas to the governor's headquarters. It was early morning. They themselves did not enter the governor's headquarters so that they would not be defiled, but could eat the Passover. If they went into a Gentile's house, then they would be defiled, they would be unclean, and they couldn't have celebrated the Passover. Ponder what really would have made them unclean rather than going into Pilate's house. So Pilate went outside to them and said, what accusation do you bring against this man? They answered him, if this man were not doing evil, we would not have delivered him over to you. Pilate said to them, take him yourselves and judge him by your own law. The Jews said to him, it is not lawful for us to put anyone to death. This is to fulfill the word that Jesus had spoken to show by what kind of death he was going to die, a Roman cross. So Pilate entered his headquarters again and called Jesus and said to him, are you the king of the Jews? Jesus answered, do you say this of your own accord, or did others say it to you about me? Pilate answered, am I a Jew? Your own nation and the chief priests have delivered you over to me. What have you done? Jesus answered, my kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would have been fighting, that I might not be delivered over to the Jews. But my kingdom is not from this world. Then Pilate said to him, so you are a king? Jesus answered, you say that I am a king. For this purpose I was born, and for this purpose I have come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice. Pilate said to him, what is truth? After he had said this, he went back outside to the Jews and told them, I find no guilt in him. But you have a custom that I should release one man for you at the Passover. So do you want me to release to you the king of the Jews? They cried out again, not this man, but Barabbas. Now Barabbas was a robber. So that is the story. And before we move on, we're going to talk about this student work. So, what emotions do you think Judas might have been feeling as he stood with the crowd that was arresting him? Maybe some guilt. Certainly, we know he ended up feeling guilty about the whole thing, and he hanged himself. I don't know if there was any remorse or sadness, but I suppose it's possible. Um, I'm going to skip that next one. What might have caused Peter to deny he knew Jesus? Yeah, fear of being punished or being killed. Jesus had just been arrested. Am I next? If I tell them I'm with Jesus, are they going to arrest me? So yeah, I'm sure he was afraid of what might happen to him if he admitted that he was a disciple of Jesus. What would you have thought about Pilate's comment? Now, I'm going to skip that one too. How would you describe Jesus' answers to Pilate and Caiaphas? How are his answers to the two similar or different? So, um, to whom did he give the most information? Caiaphas or Pilate? Pilate. Yeah, he gave Pilate a lot more information. Why would he do that? Why would he give more information to Pilate? Judah, what are your thoughts? Yeah. Although he was a Roman, but Jesus knew that Caiaphas was just trying to get him killed. What do you think, Phil?
Like he was like more willing to do him. What he'll say, Caiaphas was like trying to put him at the stake in every word he said.
Yeah, Caiaphas had an agenda, right? And he knew that. Caiaphas had already made up his mind. And even when they asked, when Pilate said, "What did he do wrong?" They didn't say what he did wrong, did they? They said, "Well, we wouldn't have arrested him if he didn't do something wrong," right? Um, that's a very telling statement. So I think he probably thought that maybe Pilate actually would listen and maybe believe him. But Caiaphas was already had already made up his mind. Is Jesus defending his innocence here? Not really. Why wouldn't he defend himself? He wasn't trying to get out of it. He wasn't trying to beat the charges. He knew he was to die, and it was that was the plan. He was on board with that. So, he wasn't going to do anything to fight against um, that plan, that plan of crucifixion. Okay, great. That's excellent. So I'm gonna turn over to a new video, and we'll start the chapter 32 lecture. If you're watching this, just go back to YouTube and find the lecture for chapter 32 and watch that.